installment of Revelation tells us the war has already been decided. Well, when you get so far into Revelation, you can see I should have called this the wars have already been decided, because there's two different distinct wars in Revelation, and I'm going to explain and show you how you can explain to others there's two different distinct wars in Revelation. Now, the reason this is important is because we've been seeing mention of this false prophet, and when we hear the statement false prophet, that's telling us that, yeah, of course, there's going to be people that want to appear like they're on God's side, but they're really on the devil's side. There's all kinds of stories in the Old Testament about false prophets that Jeremiah had to go up against, and Isaiah had to face, and some of the other major prophets and some of the minor prophets had to contend with these false prophets. These are people that were making up their own prophecies, and they were, proved to be rather profitable. Well, the same thing is true with combining the two wars in Revelation into one war. One of the major things that I see misquoted is the term Armageddon combined with Gog and Magog. They combine the two, to try to make it look like they really know what they're talking about. But you know what? They're combining the two wars. They're completely misrepresenting Scripture. And these are, I got to ask the question, are those people the false prophet that is talked about in Revelation? Anyway, we're gonna take a look at Revelation here and put this all together so everyone can understand it and everyone can see the proper sequence John recorded in Revelation and prove that Revelation was recorded in the proper sequence. Now, what I did is I'm going to basically back up, because we keep on seeing the term after this or then or whatever. See, this chapter 14 begins with then, so we got to back up. But I backed up. I thought a good starting place would be Revelation 14, which is the harvesting, or the earth has been judged. The dead are all judged. The living are judged. Every single being that's ever been on the earth has been judged, and it's been determined whether they're saved forever or lost forever. What I did is I took all of these and I put them all into an editor here. So we're going to start in Revelation 14. And when I saw a white cloud, and seated on a cloud was someone like the Son of Man, who had a gold crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. And another angel came from the temple and shouted to the one sitting in a cloud, "Swing the sickle, for the time of the harvest has come. The crop on the earth is ripe." So the one sitting on a cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the whole earth was harvested. After that, another angel came from the temple in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, who had power to destroy with fire, came from the altar. He shouted at the angel with the sharp sickle, "Swing your sickle now to gather the grapes of the vines of the earth, so they are ripe for judgment." So the angel swung his sickle over the earth and loaded the grapes in their great winepress of God's wrath. The grapes were trampled in the winepress outside the city, and blood flowed from the winepress in a stream about 180 miles long and as high as a horse's bridle. Okay, so number one, we have the judgment period. And once we learn the sequence, it's going to be easy to understand. Okay, so we have two different. One is Jesus with a sickle. Another one with an angel with a sickle. So obviously, who is Jesus harvesting? Well, that's just like the parable that Jesus told about gather the wheat, into my barn, and then take all the tares, the weeds, and all that stuff, and burn them. Oh, okay. So that's a short explanation. Doesn't get into too much detail, but explains the judgment period. Then we hop on down to the next chapter, which says, then, which means after this, I saw in heaven another miraculous event of great significance. 7 angels were holding the 7 last plagues, which would bring God's wrath to completion. Okay, so we know that there's going to be these 7 plagues immediately following the judgment period, and then this is going to bring everything to completion. So we know that. Very simple to understand. So, number 2, the 7 last plagues begin. Then we go on, and then, so Revelation 15 begins with then, Revelation 16 begins with then, which tells us this story was recorded in the proper sequence. And to understand one chapter, we have to read the previous chapter. Then I heard a mighty voice from the temple say to the 7 angels, go your ways and pour out on the earth the 7 bowls containing God's wrath. So the first angel left the temple and poured out his bowl on the earth. Horrible, malignant sores broke out on everybody who had the mark of the beast and who worshiped his statue. So basically, we're going to be able to see in real life, physically, who is saved and who is lost. When that first plague starts, right after the judgment period, we're going to be able to see. And realistically, in 2023, it's getting easier and easier to see who's got a chance of being saved and who most likely is going to be lost. So we want to stay away from judging people, but it's getting pretty evident. Okay, so number 3, first plague places a mark on the lost. Then we continue in Revelation 16. Then, so after that, the 6th angel poured out his bowl on a great Euphrates river, and it dried up so that the kings from the east could march their armies towards the west without hindrance. Now, we don't know, because we've seen earlier that in one story, water represents people. Does it represent people in this one? Drying up people. In other words, eliminating the competition or something like that. Is that going to be something that's going to happen? We'd have to look into that deeper. We'd have to look at some of the Greek definitions of some of these words in here, but we're just going to keep it simple today. And I saw 3 evil spirits that look like frogs leap from the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. So here we got mentioning a false prophet. What is this false prophet? It's going to be someone, people, organizations. When we look at the merchants, we see all these merchants are involved in all this kind of stuff, from food to fabrics to human slaves and gold and silver and all this stuff. The false prophets probably going to be pretty much the same, involved in a whole bunch of different things to deceive people. They are demonic spirits who work miracles to go out to all the rulers of the world to gather them for the battle against the Lord on the great judgment day of the Almighty God. Now, there's actually, if you look at it, there's different sequences to the judgment, and there's different judgment days, so of course there's going to be different battles. Look, I will come as unexpectedly as a thief. Blessed are all who are watching for me, who keep their clothing ready, so they will not have to walk around naked and ashamed. And we've seen in Revelation that, the white represents the works of God's people, and God's army is all dressed in white. God's army is is here to help us. And meanwhile, the demonic spirits gathered all the rulers and their armies to a place with the Hebrew name Armageddon. Now keep in mind, this is Armageddon in this one, in chapter 16. Later we're going to see Gog and Magog. Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a mighty shout came from the throne in the temple, saying, "It is finished." Okay, what is finished? Then the thunder crashed and rolled, and lightning flashed, and a great earthquake struck, the worst since people were placed on the earth. And the great city of Babylon split into 3 sections, and the cities of many nations fell into heaps of rubble. So God remembered all of Babylon's sins, and every island disappeared, and all the mountains were leveled. In other words, the earth is facing pretty much total destruction with this 7th plague. Okay, that's why it uses the term, "it is finished." There was a terrible hailstorm, and hailstones weighing 75 pounds fell from the sky onto the people below. They cursed God because of the terrible plague of the hailstorm. So here we see the battle being gathered. And they're gathered by these 3 demonic spirits which came from the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. In other words, the dragon's going to deceive people, the beast is going to deceive people, the false prophet is going to deceive people. And it's not going to be one single major deception like people like to claim they know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, people that do that, they are the false prophets, okay? So we got this battle, and basically the earth is pretty much destroyed. So we've got the 6th plague. We got the 3 evil frogs gather the army for the first battle, Armageddon. The 7th plague, Babylon splits, cities crumble, islands disappear. You got the hailstorm. Then we go on to Revelation 17. We go from Revelation 16, turn the page to Revelation 17, and here we see something that we see repeated throughout Revelation. One of the 7 angels who had poured out the 7 bowls came over and spoke to me. In other words, this angel is coming to talk to John and explain to John what he just saw. "Come with me," he said, "and I will show you the judgment that is going to come on the great prostitute who rules over many waters." In other words, the angel is telling John this is going to happen in John's future. It is not distracting from the sequence that John recorded at all. It's explaining that this is going to happen in John's future. And they talk about the great prostitute, the woman sitting on the beast. "The kings of the world have committed adultery with her, and the people who belong to this world have been drunk by the wine of her immortality." So the angel took me in the spirit to the wilderness, where I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns, and blasphemies against God were written all over it. So basically, there's going to be blasphemies written all over it, all kinds of blasphemies. In other words, all kinds of deceptions that these frogs from the false prophet and the beast, and are going to be using. The woman wore purple and scarlet clothing and beautiful jewelry made of gold, precious gems and pearls. In her hand she held a gold goblet full of obscenities and the impurities of her immortality. In other words, this is trying to explain, the people that were taken and crushed in the wine press, and that river flowing so high for 180 miles. It's going back and explaining what was in that wine. Okay? And this woman you saw in your vision represents the great city that rules over the kings of the world. So basically, the Bible just told you what Babylon represents. Okay, the woman represents Babylon. Okay, so the angel explains chapter 16 to John, and the woman on the beast represents Babylon. So basically, you want to take and try to explain what Babylon means. Just go back here. And it has all this beautiful jewelry and clothing and all that stuff. It has this attraction to people. And that includes gold and precious gems and pearls. And basically they amount to obscenities and the impurities of her immortality. Simple definition for Babylon, the woman. Same thing. Okay, so we go from Revelation chapter 17 to Revelation 18. After all of this, I saw another angel come down from heaven with great authority, and the earth grew bright with his splendor. In other words, angel explains to John what happened in chapter 16, and then we have another angel. He gave a mighty shout, Babylon has fallen, that great city has fallen. She has become a home for demons. She is a hideout for every foul spirit, a hideout for every foul vulture, and every foul and dreadful animal. So here we've got Babylon again, another explanation of Babylon. It's continuing with the explanation of Babylon, giving us clues of what to watch out for this deceptive woman. For all the nations have fallen because of the wine of her passionate immortality. Revelation 18 is basically repeating the obscenities and impurities of immortality. It's a continuation of the explanation. The kings of the world have committed adultery with her because of her desires for extravagant luxury. The merchants of the world have grown rich. It's a continuation of the explanation. Simple as see. Then I heard another voice calling from heaven, "Come away from her, my people. Do not take part in her sins, or you will be punished with her." Simple. Any questions? For her sins are piled as high as heaven, and God remembers all her evil deeds. Do to her what she has done to others. Double her penalty for all her evil deeds. She brewed a cup of terror for others, so brew twice as much for her. So the explanation of Babylon's fall is continued in Revelation 18. Now, why take 3 chapters to explain Babylon's fall? Well, when we're living through the time of Babylon's deceptions, it's important for us to know. Jesus is teaching us through repetition what to watch out for, what to stay away from. Simple. And we continue in Revelation 18. In a single moment, all the wealth of the city is gone, and all the captains of the merchant ships and the passengers and sailors and crews will stand at a distance. They will cry as they watch the smoke ascend, and they will say, "Where is there another city as great as this?" Now, we're looking at, the outcome of the war, or wars, has already been decided. We're given more and more and more detailed information about this. And they will weep and throw dust on their heads to show their grief, and they will cry out, "How terrible, and how terrible for that great city." The ship owners became wealthy by transporting her great wealth on the seas. In a single moment, it is all gone. Good information to have. Yeah, okay. So you're going to go and steal all these trillions of dollars. Basically, I got, okay, I'm just going to quick mention it. George Soros grew really filthy rich by manipulating the economy of countries, and he placed bets in his private club. on the failure of these countries. And he grew rich. He made billions and billions of dollars off of his so-called friends by making bets like this. Now, okay, if you think Soros is going to bet on the economy of countries and work to fix and deplete the economy, ruin the economy of those countries, don't you think that Soros is going to place a couple of side bets on these stores in these blue cities we see closing down every single day now in 2023? So just take a look at Soros. I mean, the guy, if you're going to bet on something that big and you are that addicted to gambling that you're going to bet on the fall of countries, the devastation of millions of lives, the death and destruction of hundreds of thousands of lives, if you're that sick and that addicted to gambling, don't you think he's going to take the opportunity and make a little bit of extra chump change betting on the destruction of the failure of these stores that are leaving the blue cities? Now, don't forget, it was Soros's idea to start BLM, to have all of the people that are listening to him, that look at him as a god, to fund BLM, to have all of these riots, to defund police, to make it so dangerous in blue cities, to actually organize these flash shoplifting mobs and everything else. In other words, Soros is behind all of this stuff on all these stores. Now, if you look at it, and you look at the membership of the WEF that he leads, a lot of those people own those stores. So Soros is making those stores fail intentionally. And we don't know why. The only explanation I can come up with is the guy is so addicted to gambling, he's going to screw his best friends on it, and he doesn't care if he loses them or not because money is that important. We can see that taking place in Revelation as we see, this woman sitting on, and we see explanations that they're going to hate her. Rejoice over her faith, O heaven, and people of God, and apostles and prophets, for at last God has judged her for your sakes. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a huge millstone. He threw it into the ocean and shouted, just like this, the great city Babylon will be thrown down with violence and will never be found again. How many different explanations have we seen reinforcing the fact that these wars have already been decided? So now we're going to get into the wars. So we see an explanation of Babylon's fall continued. And in this one we see the merchants crying out over the destruction, the fall of Babylon. Are those sources friends? We don't know. We can't say for sure at this point. Okay, Revelation, we go from Revelation 18 over to Revelation 19:1. And of course it starts with after this. I heard what sounded like a vast crowd in heaven shouting, praise the Lord. Salvation and glory and power belong to our God. His judgments are true and just, and he has punished the great prostitute who corrupted the earth with her immorality. He has avenged the murder of his servants. How many people died from COVID? How many people died in those revolutions to where Soros funded communist takeover? And not only that, we don't know how far, how many things Babylon, the city of Babylon, actually represents, because the history of Babylon, if we looked at it, consisted of different rulers in different times. Is that telling us that there's different parts of Babylon in the last days that are all combined. We don't know for sure, but we know that these people are going to be known for murdering God's servants. Just little details here and there. So we see an explanation of Babylon's fall continued again. And in this one, we see the prostitute is being punished. Okay. So we go a little bit further in Revelation 19, and what do we see? Then I saw, so after this it's telling us, after this, and then I saw an angel standing in the sun, shouting to the vultures flying high in the sky, "Come, gather together for the great banquet God has prepared. Come and eat the flesh of kings and generals and strong warriors on horses and the riders and all of humanity, both free and slave, great and small and great." Then, see how it keeps on using the word, then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to fight the one standing on the horse and his army. And the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who did mighty miracles on behalf of the beast, miracles that deceived all who had accepted the mark of the beast and worshipped his statues. Both the beast and the false prophet were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. So first we see the prostitute is punished. And then the beast that prostitute was sitting on was captured along with the false prophet, because God said that's enough. And the beast and the false prophet were thrown alive into the lake of burning sulfur. Keep that in mind. Okay, make a mental note of that, because we're going to see some evidence that's going to tell you that what we're doing here is perfectly consistent with what John recorded. Okay, so the first battle from Revelation 16 is ended. The beast and the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. So this first battle began in Revelation 16 and it ended in Revelation 19. So we turn the page, we go on to Revelation 20 verse 1. It starts with then. So after the end of the first battle, I saw an angel coming down from heaven with the key to the bottomless pit and a heavy chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, that old serpent who was the devil, Satan, and bound him in chains for 1,000 years. The angel threw him into the bottomless pit, which he then shut and locked. So Satan could not deceive the nations anymore until 1,000 years were finished. Afterwards, he must be released for a little while. Simple. This is probably one of the simplest explanations found in the Bible, including Revelation. So I don't know why people cannot understand it. I don't know why people take it out of context. Are they defining the false prophet? So, after the beast and the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire, then Satan is bound for 100,000 years. And as we go on in Revelation 20, we see when 1,000 years come to an end, Satan will be let out of his prison. Who's he? That's Satan. So in the first battle we see the three frogs, the evil spirits, gathered an army. Now Satan is gathering an army. He will go out to deceive the nations, called Gog and Magog. Here we see Gog and Magog in Revelation 20. It's not even a mention of Armageddon in here. Two separate locations, two separate wars. in every corner of the earth. He will gather them together for battle, a mighty army as numerous as sand along the seashore. Now, some people speculate that when this happens, the earth was destroyed, and Satan was locked away for 1,000 years. There was nobody to deceive. And after this, a lot of people speculate, and I don't see it here unless we look into some of the Greek words, maybe we'll see it, but are the dead raised? And now Satan is leading all the dead people since the earth was created, who are going to be lost forever. I'd say that's speculation right now, but I would say, yeah, it needs some looking into. And I saw them as they went up on a broad plain of the earth and surrounded God's people and the beloved city. So where are they now? Certainly God's city is not ever referred to as Armageddon. So how come the false prophet ties in Armageddon with Gog and Magog? But fire from heaven came down on the attacking armies and consumed them. So the first time God has the earthquake, thunder and lightning and the hail and all of this stuff, there wasn't even a battle in the first war. Jesus just ended it. What a word. Now they gather around God's holy city, the New Jerusalem, and Jesus just wipes them out with fire. So after they're all wiped out, then the devil who had deceived them, it reinforces it right here. The first battle was the three frogs, and now the second battle was Satan himself. Satan himself deceived them. He was thrown into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. And what does it say here? Joining the beast and the false prophet. There they will be tortured day and night forever and ever. So this just verifies it right here that after the first war, after the first battle, there's a second. And Satan gathers his army personally, and after he loses on that one, he joins the beast and the false prophet in a lake of fire. So Revelation is explaining to us there are two separate wars, and both of them have basically the same outcome, but different wars, different time, different location. And I saw a great white throne and one sitting on it. The earth and the sky fled from his presence, but they found no place to hide. I saw the dead, both great and small, standing before God's throne, and the books were opened, including the book of life, and the dead were judged according to what they had done as recorded in the books. Now, keep in mind, it tells us here that the dead were raised, Revelation 20:12. But what happened with Satan's army that he gathered that was the biggest army ever gathered in the history of the earth? Fire came down and wiped them all out again. First battle, earthquakes, lightning and thunder and hail killed them all off. Second one, fire. So they're all dead again. So they gotta be raised back again. Oh man, must be a real pain being among the lost. You keep on getting killed and coming back. Okay, the sea gave up its dead, and death and the grave gave up their dead, and all were judged according to their deeds. Then death and the grave were thrown into the lake of fire. This lake of fire is the second death. And anyone whose name was not found recorded in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. So, number 11. Satan is released after 1,000 years. Satan gathers his own army. He surrounds God's city. So Satan joins the beast and the false prophet in the fiery lake, and the dead are thrown into the lake of fire. Simple. So we're going to take a look at this in 11 steps. The judgment period is in Revelation 14. Okay, the 7 last plagues begin in Revelation 15. Okay, the first plague places a mark on the lost in Revelation 16. The 6th plague, 3 evil angels gather the army for the first battle, which is Armageddon. And the 7th plague, Babylon splits, cities crumble, islands disappear. There's the hailstorm, and that's all in Revelation 16. Number 5, the angel explains chapter 16. The woman on the beast represents Babylon. That's in chapter 17. The angel is explaining. That explanation of Babylon's fall is continued in Revelation 18, and the explanation of Babylon's fall is continued where the merchants cry out in Revelation 18, and the explanation of Babylon's fall is continued where the prostitute is punished in Revelation 19. So basically, this is an explanation of that first battle to where they're destroyed by the earthquake and the hail. So the first battle from Revelation 16 is ended in Revelation 19. A beast and a false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. Satan is bound for 1,000 years at the beginning of Revelation 20, verse 1. Later, Satan is released after 1,000 years. Satan gathers his own army, surrounds God's city. Satan joins the beast and the false prophet in the fiery lake. The dead are thrown into the lake of fire in Revelation 20. So, what more can I say? Anyway, leave your comments. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to like. Spread the thing around. Don't let that false prophet get a toehold. Let's cut it, nip it in the bud. That's what God wants us to. Don't forget, the white linen represents the good deeds of God's people. God's army is all dressed in white linen. We're all on the same page. So, and don't forget the important thing: 90% of prayer is listening. And let's keep on studying.